atmosphere, contaminating the air that we breathe without our consent. Chemtrails are destroying the planet.
I'm not going to let my fear stop me. Chemtrails are killing us.
We may never know the full extent of the damage aerial chemtrail spraying is doing to our bodies and the health of our children, but we cannot halt our efforts, even if that means going head-to-head and toe-to-toe with government agencies, the military, and corporations.
It's getting real now.
Take this as a call to action. Become an activist in whatever place and condition you find yourself in. And in Churchill's words, never give in, never give in, never, never, never.
I heard a lot of discussion about HAARP, and I wanted to give some information relative to that particular issue. It seems that there's a certain amount of confusion regarding how it is being utilized at this time. And HAARP is part of iophonic heaters. HAARP and high pass, which is the high-powered auroral stimulation, are iophonic heaters. And essentially what they do is they heat up the ionosphere and they allow for a lens to be punched into the ionosphere. HAARP utilizes that lens in terms of being able to inject its beam for purposes of surveillance, weather modification, and so on and so forth. A great portion of what is going on today is a coordination between both HAARP and NEXRAD. NEXRAD, as most people understand it, is being utilized for the purposes of being able to determine weather patterns. There is no natural weather patterns. They have been taken care of by the military efforts relative to HAARP and high pass. What is going on now is weather is being told to us and coming through the meteorologist from the military at this point. This information is being brought to us because no weather that we are experiencing today, and probably haven't been for at least the last year and a half, has been completely controlled by a combination of HAARP, high pass, and NEXRAD. A lot of what you see today is weather modification and manipulation. A lot of what HAARP is being utilized for is not only weather manipulation, it's also being used to be able to show the Russians that our technology is almost up to par with theirs. The war that we wanted to go to relative to President Obama in terms of going to war with Syria was thwarted, specifically because Russia had the upper hand. They were on the other side, and they were backing China, and they had the ability to surpass us with their technology with respect to HAARP. They are far beyond us. We have seen a great deal of HAARP testing over the last year to a year and a half relative to trying to surpass the Russians in their technology. There is no global warming. Iophonic heaters are being utilized to manipulate the ionosphere so that we can punch a lens into it. That lens allows HAARP to redirect its beam to any other place on the Earth at this time. And this lens could be as small as a quarter, it could be as large as 5 states. And that lens allows for the manipulation of the HAARP beams. Where I live today, HAARP is also being utilized to drive extremely low and very low frequency waves into the Earth. It'll send a resonance into the ground. That resonance will receive back a sound, a tone, a resonance. That resonance will tell the operators of HAARP if it's talking to shale, if it's talking to rock, solid rock, if it's touching oil. where I live now, there are a lot of oil rigs that are being drilled into the ground, and Texas is up in this region, and they're doing a lot of drilling specific to what HAARP is able to do, tell them where to drill, where the oil is, and where to set up their derricks. As a matter of fact, about 2.5 hours ago, the VLF waves that parse my neighborhood turned on my GPS. It happens on a regular basis. My GPS is turned off, it's unplugged. It will turn on by itself because of the VLF waves that are so strong in this region, and it'll start spewing forth information relative to some obscure direction that may have been punched into the GPS at one point or another. It also turns on, it'll turn off my house alarm system. I can hear HAARP. HAARP is a very low frequency wave. It sounds like a diesel engine idling outside of my house. And I hear this starting about 3:30 every morning, and it just continues on until 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. This is when they do a lot of their searching for oil and searching for prospective locations. Now, there are two different attributes to HAARP. There is weather modification, and there is the ability to be able to use VLF waves to be able to parse the Earth. It's also being utilized to communicate with submarines. They can send radio signals into VLF waveforms and talk to submarines that are submerged hundreds of feet into the ocean.
Do they use the depth towers with HAARP?
That is another aspect of HAARP, and that's more on the militaristic side, that it also allows for specific wavelengths to create a pattern that will essentially disperse a solid object. HAARP also has the ability to be able to hit such low frequencies that it could turn human beings inside to jelly. It could turn a solid mass into a liquid mass. HAARP is a very devastating, exotic war machine. It's also used for some practical purposes as well. I'm seeing both sides of it, relative to the military side from videos that I have seen that are of virtue, and I'm also seeing the practical side relative to the oil rigs that are being set up in this area. I don't have any means by which I support their drilling for oil in this region, but that is one of the things that HAARP is being utilized for at this time. High pass, on the other side, which is the high-power Oriole simulation, allows for heating up of the ionosphere. That is what is causing global warming. Using these ionospheric heaters is causing global warming. It has nothing to do with nature, it has nothing to do with any of the things that are relative to what may be going on with respect to industry and so forth. That is only about 1/6 of the contributing factor to what is happening with respect to global warming. Global warming is being created by ionospheric heaters such as high pass and HAARP. They need to be able to manipulate the ionosphere in order to redirect their beams to be able to ascertain information relative to either peaceful applications or military applications. And that's just a very small fractional part of what they do. You can see what HAARP is doing when you look up at the clouds and you see the scalar clouds. The scalar clouds are the long, slender clouds that have spaces between them. That is from the ELF waves. The reason why we experience 27, 28 days out of every month in clouds is because HAARP does not operate well in clear daylight hours. A cloud needs to have the aluminum or the alumina particulates in it. They allow HAARP to be able to reflect off of that metallic region and to bring that information back to Earth. It gives them a reflection. It gives them a means by which to be able to send a beam up and reflect it back down again. I was working at Brookhaven Lab out in Long Island, New York. There was a HAARP facility being utilized at that time with respect to the aerosols that were being tested on their relativistic heavy ion collider. These are peaceful applications that they were working on. At that time, the military, the Navy specifically, took over, and a lot of the work that was being done had been outsourced and taken over by outside contractors and being overseen by the Department of Energy as well as the Department of Defense. I do have some experience with this. I have seen some of these applications being tested, and I have seen some of the testing being done on the Collider Accelerator at Brookhaven Lab on Long Island. This is information that I'm aware of from firsthand encounters and being a part of it from a systems administrative perspective. I worked on the computer systems that were being set up for real-time sampling of the testing that was done on the Collider Accelerator at that time. And this is going back to 2000 to 2003. Now the technology is way beyond my imagination, and I'm talking to you about what I have seen and what I have been researching ever since my days when I worked on it.
Right, and we all salute
now,
you.
I think stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, or the injection of aerosols into the stratosphere. And those aerosols are not just aerosols. A lot of those aerosols are being used for multiple reasons. You have aerosols that are being utilized for weather manipulation. You also have aluminum particulates that are being utilized for HAARP redirection. You also have some things that are being put into the atmosphere, and I say some things because I don't want to start pointing fingers, but there are chemicals that are being put into the atmosphere for probably more diabolical reasons, namely depopulation. And that I know from talking to physicists from my time working at Brookhaven Lab. Depopulation is a big military agenda at this time. And I can't tell you why, but I can tell you that it is. We need to be able to come to grips with the fact that the best way to address these issues, the best way to talk and discuss these issues is to discuss them in as intelligent of a fashion as possible, and we need to be able to find the best means by which to deliver our vehicle to the powers that be, such that they will listen to us to know that we know what we're talking about. People say, well, I see these chemtrails, and HAARP is driving me crazy, and I'm getting these vibrations and so on. Believe me, I experienced it firsthand, overwhelmingly so. I have cataracts from my days of living on Long Island because I worked at Brookhaven National Lab. HAARP causes cataracts, and how it causes cataracts is because of the VLF waves. If you're too close to a facility that's redirecting, you stand a chance of getting cataracts or worse.
Ask you a question? I want to
Certainly.
ask, what do you think that we can do, like the activists can do about the chemtrails at this point?
I think the best thing that we can do is to come up with a formed methodology in terms of being able to present that which is an obvious problem, and to find a better means by which to address and to deliver this information to the powers that be. And when I say the powers that be, I'm talking about people that are in Congress, people that are involved in such a means that we can have our voices heard. There is also There's also, as far as I understand, a bill that indicates that the government can do and will do any kind of testing that it chooses to test upon the public. It's up to us to be able to address that bill. It's up to us to be able to bring that to the streets, so to speak, and it's up to us to be able to say we object to this, because if you don't, it will never be heard. You have to find the bills, you have to find the information, and you have to address it.
And I see what you're saying as well. We have to have this platform. We have to deal directly with the powers that be. So it really is a double-edged sword.